no idea if I am live. Oh boy. Let's see here. Admin approved or Newton. Okay. Hi there. I can see myself, which means, oh, yay. I cannot. I am glad I am on my phone as well. And I am silenced here. Let me know if I am doing any kind of funny volume business here. Yay. You are here, or am I like glitching on the noise? Well, everyone, thank you. I'm going to put my phone here so I can see your comments because I cannot see them here. So thanks for that recommendation. All right, and it's even captioning. This is very high tech. All righty, I want to give it a minute. I can hear my kids doing some bad things upstairs, so we're just going to block that out. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I'm so excited. I'm also very nervous. So let's do this. I feel like I've been giving this some thought and then I started overthinking it and I was like, you know what? This is what I know best. I know breast pumps so well and there's so many to choose from and it's quite overwhelming. So even for myself as someone who is very experienced with breastfeeding and breast pumping, it's still overwhelming. So I want to try to make it easier on you. Audio is great. Thank you, Courtney. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's see where we're at. What time is it? We're 2 minutes in. Okay, let's give it another minute or so. And I want to tell you a few things to look out for during this live. Number one, there will be a giveaway at the end. So there's going to be a $100 Newton giveaway, a gift card giveaway. In addition to that, I am going to be giving away a few of my own products. So I have a pump stuff bag, which if you're familiar with my best friend, I offer breastfeeding solutions. So it is a not waterproof, but water resistant bag that you can keep all of your breastfeeding accessories in. And it's got names of like things not to forget when you leave the house. It's super cool. I had it designed based off of my own needs as a exclusive pumping mom. And then also I have a Beyond the Boob download, an instant download that's going to be included, and a water bottle, which I just forgot to bring downstairs with me naturally. So, okay, we're gaining a few heads here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, let's give you a little introduction on myself. So, my name is Kristen. I am a CLC, a certified lactation counselor. I have actively been breastfeeding for the last 7 years of my life. And with that, I've also obviously gained a ton of experience and education. So, with all that, I just give you like a nice massaged slew of information that I can actively give to you from using all of this product in my house and then also based on my experiences with the community, clients, and education. So I like to just give you a nice roundup of everything. Let's see here. So, what I want to do, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So, the way to enter the giveaway is to comment here. And what I was thinking about how I want to do this is the flow. I want to talk about the differences of the pumps because I think that's the biggest thing, right? You get this laundry list of all these pumps and you don't really know what the differences are or like what you might need until you're in the thick of it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known about that. It's too late. I have a 2 day prime waiting list or whatever, waiting for delivery. So let's knock some of those out now. So we're going to do the flow is going to be differences between pumps. Then we're going to do expectations and lifestyles so we know how to apply these pumps to what you are anticipating when baby is here, or if they're even here now and you're like, okay, I just need to like gain some education and insight to what to expect later. And then I'm going to top it off with product. Product is, again, I have tons of pumps here, so I'm going to bring it down to the ones that I would highly recommend. Not necessarily based on my experience, because I don't want to push any kind of agenda here by any means. I want to share what I know actively works with the community, good feedback I hear, and just things that I would personally recommend based off of all of that. In between all of these, we're going to stop and do a question. I'm going to try to make this not so like I don't know, college forum here. I don't want to ramble. I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. So I'm going to quickly look at what we got going on here. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. All right, let's get into it. So first things first, before we get into the differences, know that according to the Affordable Care Act, I think this is where we need to start. The Affordable Care Act, or the ACA, mandates coverage for breastfeeding support and equipment. So that said, you should be able to, and I say should because that's in the language under the ACA, that you should be eligible for this equipment and the support. So to confirm your eligibility and specific coverage details, you want to check with your insurance provider directly, or you can go to your DME. You can do some research and find a DME, or a durable medical equipment provider. So this is someone that's going to be giving you your breast pump, or and potentially also supplying you with regular replacement parts. So whether that be flanges, duckbills, whatever, storage bags, that could all be special to what your insurance provides. So that's something that you definitely want to look into. And again, that is going to be by contacting your insurance provider, or you can contact your DME, who very well might reach out to your provider, your healthcare provider, and then get that information between the two of them. And then with that, you should be able to get a laundry list of all the breast pumps that you are eligible for, which is really where the fun begins. So now that that's out of the way, now for the meat and potatoes. Where do you even start? So the first thing and something I talk about all the time, are the differences of pumps. You might be hearing me say, well, it's your primary or secondary, or it's a passive collector. What do all of these mean? So I am surrounded by breast pumps right now. So let's just kind of show them off. This is going to be a passive collector. This pump, and I say that loosely because I really don't like that it's called a pump, because it gives you the influence that it is going to actively remove milk and potentially be your sole removal for adequate removal to keep your milk supply up. And that may not be the way that these are going to be applied for many. If you are feeding baby at the breast, this could be very well a way to keep milk moving. But if you are a pumping mom, you're someone that is using a breast pump all the time, this is not it. And I have definitely seen advertising where they have said, put these in your bra and remove your milk and carry on through your day. Well, if that is to replace a pumping session as a breast pumping mom, then this is not it. So this, though, in my opinion, is an absolute must. I particularly love this version. It is the Boon. It's a solid piece. It's definitely my go-to because it sits in the bra. You can't knock it off. It's an excellent option. That's something that I would just honestly have on hand, and I'll get to that later. But that's something that I would have on hand just because it's inexpensive, it's an easy solution, and it's just very easy to obtain for like an overnight delivery. This is a hand pump. The hand pump is something that is very underrated. The hand pump can very well be hacked with different style flanges, so you always have that option depending on what you use. I personally would recommend the Medela Harmony hand pump because, and I'm going to get into a product later, but since it's in the screen, it makes sense to talk about it just briefly. This one allows you to have more control over the milk removal, and a hand pump can very well be a primary pump for some, depending again how you apply it. But again, it's a very inexpensive, easy pump to have on hand, and in a lot of cases it's great for like emergencies, power outages. Obviously it doesn't require any electricity, so I would recommend this to have on hand, simply because it's a very easy pump just to like stash in the back of your tool of tricks. And then a primary and a secondary pump, that's really where the meat and potatoes are, right? So a primary pump is going to be your sole removal. It's going to be the pump that you're going to lean into, rely on for active and adequate removal. If baby is doing all of the removal themselves, then you may not need a primary pump. And again, we're going to get into that in a minute. But the primary, again, you got to keep in mind that the primary is going to be your most effective removal. And then a secondary pump is just that. It's a pump that you're going to use on the go. You're going to use in between effective removal. So your primary is going to be your meat potatoes, your number one. Your baby is your meat and potatoes number one. But if you're not using the baby as your sole removal, then that primary is super important. And after those two are satisfied, your baby or your primary pump doing the active removal, then your secondary is going to come into play. And that, again, is going to be your on-the-go, mobile, sporadic use. You're not going to lean into a secondary pump for active and adequate removal because it very well may not do that. And when you're not removing milk the most effective way possible, that is when we're going to see problems with supply. So that's why it's really important to know the differences between all of these pumps. And again, at the very end, I'm going to get into some more information about product, but like a primary could be your Spectra pump. This is another version of a Spectra, which is fabulous, and we can talk about that in a minute. This is a dual motor, so there's two motors on this pump, one here. Depending on use, you could jump between the two of them. They're both fabulous pumps. Personally, I like to lean into my smaller portable yet primary pumps. So we've got a baby Buddha here. This is the Pumpables Genie Advance. Yeah, there's so many ways to spin this, and it can honestly get pretty complicated. So that's why I don't want to overload this with like too much product. I'd rather just stick to the facts, and then from there you can gauge which pump may be best suited for you based on reviews and crowdsourcing and just common response. Like, just I would definitely deep dive into pumping conversations on Facebook, Reddit. Go to your trusted source and see how they recommend things and read reviews to then dial in which is going to be your best suited pump for you. But do know the difference between primary, secondary, passive, and hand pump. Okay, and then yeah, I just wanted to say also that your passive and your hand pump, so these two here, two very inexpensive options, which I highly recommend having on hand, because they're awesome. These are really great to have on hand, because this is what I want to say, because if you find that you're in a pickle and you need something, these are two things that you could be like just stashing away, and then in a pinch you can be like, oh, I'm glad I had that. I could just stick it in my bra and collect a letdown, instead of like, putting in, my sister used to put a sock, and we used to joke a haka, not a saka. But in this case, this is the Boon Truve, and I would put in there for collective passive collection, or again, your hand pump. So if you have a power outage, you can't really get something right away, right? But you can lean into that in the case that you have some kind of emergency. Also, it's just two, in my opinion, it's two options that just, you don't need to think about it. They're just good to have. And that's what I want to say about that. So let's take a second, and I can see the delay is like pretty severe here. So I'm going to wait a second, and please ask any questions that you have pertaining to the differences between the breast pumps. I'll give it a minute here. Spectra, I don't think I have the correct flange size. That's totally like another ballpark of information. That's like, and I don't want to say it's very important. So I would suggest contacting me after this, and we can talk about that. And always remember, think about this too. We have BeMyBreastFriend.com, which is a blog. I don't think I even said it earlier. It's a blog full of information. So if there's ever anything that you're looking for, you can always head there, type in whatever keyword that you're looking for. It could be, I wouldn't even get too specific. I would put like a breast pump manufacturer or just a name and see what populates. And if you put in flange sizing or size, you're going to get everything that pertains to that. How do you adjust settings and flange size for the most effective milk removal for a primary? So again, that's going to be something more, it's going to be that's a bit more involved than what we're talking about here. But for settings, I would just recommend playing with that. And for traditional settings for these pumps, you're going to see that there's it's pretty common amongst most pumps. You're going to have a letdown or a stimulation mode, and then you're going to have expression mode. In between those, when you're using a breast pump, traditionally speaking, you're looking for those fast cycle speeds. And I guess this could very well be a whole nother live, but since we're here looking at these pumps, when you turn the pump on, you're going to want to go to letdown or stimulation, depending on the terminology of the pump. And you're going to have those faster cycle speeds. And once the milk starts to trickle, you turn it over to expression. And that's how you traditionally use a breast pump. So from there, it's really just rinse and repeat. So pull the milk, and once the milk stops, you can go back to letdown or stimulation. And then once the milk starts coming in, you trigger subsequent letdowns, you head back to expression. Of course, it's more in depth than just that, but that's traditionally how you would do that. And as far as flange size, that is a huge topic right now. So that would honestly take up a whole nother live. So for flange sizing, I would just start with the size that closest measures, so matches to your nipple size. I would, there's a lot of conversation from base versus tip of your nipple, but ultimately I would just get the figure that matches close. I would just personally, I just start at the base, measure the tip, kind of maybe even take the in between if you want. For now, it shouldn't be that severe of a difference, and then start with that size, and then gauge in what's most comfortable and when milk starts spraying, and that is truly going to be your best fit. But then again, of course, this is like a whole nother topic for later. What is the blog's name? So I'm Kristen from Be My Breast Friend, and I'm bemybreastfriend.com. So I have an entire blog, and it's quite populated. And I'm going to share later, and I wonder if I could do this. Let's see if I can comment. Let me do this quickly, because if I could, let's put this in here. Okay. So I just added from my personal handle, bemybreastfriend.com. It is the roadmap. It's a product that we just released more recently. It's a free download. You buy it, but it's completely free. And from there, it's a navigation on everything from choosing your breast pump and then the differences. So I know this is a lot to take in. So there are blogs about primary versus secondary, cups, mobiles. Everything is in there. And that will just lead you a roadmap throughout the blog. And then let's see what else we have. All right. I think we're on to our next topic. I hope this is going well. I feel like there's so much to say. And like I could talk about primaries, and then I can like go off and talk about secondaries and portables, and we can be here literally all day long, and I'd love that, but I don't know that my kids would, to be honest with you. I don't even know I'm down here hiding, so let's just keep this boat rolling forward. All right, so we're done with page 1. On to page 2. And that is going to be, let's chat about which pump may be best for your needs, now that we know the differences between portable, secondary, and hand pumps, passive, all the good stuff. I'm telling you, this is like the rabbit hole that we didn't know we needed. Expectations and lifestyle. This is huge. I have a friend right now. She's pregnant, looking for something, and she says, "What's the best breast pump? What do you recommend I get?" And it sounds like such an easy question to answer until you start asking more questions, which is, how do you expect this to go? And when we can dial in, like, what are your expectations? What's your lifestyle look like? What are you going back to work? Like, all of these items, all of these details are going to play, or very well could play, a part in how you choose which breast pump that is going to be best suited for your needs. And I'm just going to put it out there, and we're going to forget about it. Passive and hand pump. This is not a conversation that we're going to have right now. These, again, are just 2 items that I would highly recommend, regardless of how you think things are going to go, because they're inexpensive. They're really great tools to have in your tool chest, and something you can just like set and forget. So let's just do that. We're going to set and forget the hand pump and passive, and let's move on to your electric motors. So how do you feel? How do you vision your breastfeeding journey to go? How is this going to unfold? Examples of when to apply a secondary versus a primary. So are you expecting to exclusively breastfeed at the breast itself? Like, you're not really incorporating a breast pump, which is honestly very common. My first 2, I didn't even tell you this. I'm a mom of 5. I've got multiples, and then I've got a couple singletons. So collectively we've got 5 going here. And in the beginning, I remember being at my baby shower, and my mom's friend came up to me and she goes, "Do you plan on breastfeeding?" And I just thought it was like the weirdest question. Not because I was insulted, but because I thought, well, why wouldn't I? Like, it just seemed like something I would do, right? Like, I don't know, I guess. And that's what I told her. I go, "Yeah, of course I will." And I have delivering 2 at the time. And she's like, "Wow, good for you." And I thought that was like, I wasn't insulted by any means, but I was like so like confused. Like, why is that? Why is this weird? I just figured I would do it. Well, I didn't expect my journey to go the way it did at all. So I ended up exclusively pumping for my now 7-year-olds for a total of 18 months. And every time a breastfeeding journey of mine ended, it was because I had found out I was pregnant. So with every journey was a new expectation and a new lifestyle. And had I known like all of this information going into my first delivery, it would have helped gauge and prepare myself better for what was to come. And with that all said, I expected to feed my babies at the breast. Like, I just figured baby A, baby B, and like we'd be done. So if that were the case, I could lean into potentially a secondary pump because I would expect my babies to do all the removing. Well, in my case, that was absolutely not the case at all. I had one baby in the NICU and I had another baby that I could not get to latch to save either of our lives, truly. So I leaned into pumping. And because of that, I needed a primary pump. So I needed an effective primary pump to replace my babies doing the effective removal. With that said, you would need a primary pump. So I don't want to play favorites here. But you want something that is known to be effective. You don't want, and I love this pump. I love the UFS One Pro. That's not what we're here for. But this is a fabulous pump. But is this the pump that I'm going to use for my effective removal 8 times a day potentially? Absolutely not. I want to be flanged up. I want a nice seated, well fitted flange on each breast tied off to a pump for adequate removal. And that's going to be my primary. Another option or another example, are you headed back to work? And this is common. So you get mom that's like, well, I plan on feeding baby at breast. I really don't plan on pumping. So I'm going to get something of this nature. I have so many here. And of course, like they're looking at something, mobile pump, right, in your bra. But then you start having the conversation. You're like, well, you're really going to be away from baby for extended periods of time. You may want a pump that is considered a primary, even though you're not primarily removing milk from your breast by the pump, but you are when you're away from baby 5 days a week, call it. So at that point, I mean, some people, could become insulted depending on which way you have this conversation. And I certainly don't mean to do this, but you are an exclusive breastfeeding mom at the breast at home, but you're a combination pumper. You're when you're away, you're moving milk and you want that effective removal because baby's not there to do it. So with that being said, you still want a primary pump. So even if you're like, well, I'm going to exclusively breastfeed, but you're going to be away for longer extended periods of time, I would still recommend a primary pump because you need that adequate removal to help to encourage and move milk. You can certainly put baby to the breast while you're at home naturally, but when you're away, you still need to lean into something that is going to really draw the milk and encourage production while you're away. Another one. Do you anticipate feeding responsibilities early on? Do you plan on pumping bottles? Do you plan on collecting milk and sharing feeding responsibilities by bottle feeding? With this being said, you could really go either way. You could potentially lean into something that's going to be more mobile, or you can lean into a primary. You'll never go wrong with a primary. Just sometimes they're not the most convenient. But that's when something like this comes into play. Something that's small, something that you can easily pair up with a well-seated flange, or in some cases, you might even be looking at a cup. You can do this with anything. And again, I think we just need to get ourselves set up on 3 more lives because I can start talking about cups and how to use these as well. But once you take a primary pump that has been adequately removing milk and you're like, oh, I got the pump, it's going really well, I'm just going to start using cups. Well, now you have reduced that primary to a secondary. So that's something to be aware of as well. And I do speak to that oftentimes a lot on the blog. I even have a podcast that also reflects an episode just like that. So now if you anticipate exclusive pumping, solely removing milk, you are the main driver. Your supply and demand is operated by you. You absolutely need a primary pump. Common concerns that I see, we're going to get to questions in just a minute. So we're almost there. Common concerns I see, can your secondary be your primary? So can your mobile pump, regardless, these are the 2 I have closest to me. If I have a mobile pump, can this be your primary? It certainly can if baby is doing all of the actual moving. So if you're just leaning into a pump session once every blue moon, this could absolutely do it as long as it's well seated and you know that it's reliable and adequately removing milk. This is a real common question. Your job doesn't allow you to sit down for long extended periods of time to remove milk, and a mobile is the only option you have. Don't get turned away. I mean, it's not ideal, but I always say any removal is better than no removal. So if leaning into a mobile pump is all you've got, then we're going to make it work. So by doing that, I would recommend potentially adding more sessions. And I know that's not the easiest thing to do, but more removal is going to help ensure that you're removing milk more frequently. And that you're getting all the milk out that we need to. We don't want to leave too much milk behind. And when we do that over and over again, that's when we start seeing delays in our milk production or dips. So to avoid that, we could potentially be adding in more sessions. We very well may need to lengthen our session. Of course, none of these are ideal, right? Like you want to get in and you want to get out. But by lengthening our session, we're going to be able to ensure that we are taking all the time we need to help encourage subsequent letdowns. And sometimes we just need more time on the pump to do so, especially with mobiles. And then the best tip that I can give about a mobile, and this is like, yeah, Kristen, of course, but verify that your flange is the best seat on your breast, the best fit on your breast, and that you're responding well. You may not respond well to this pump, and you may respond well to this, or vice versa, or whatever. Like, you don't, just because you respond to one mobile doesn't mean you're going to respond to all. So that, yeah. So now, how do we know that, Kristen? I can't buy every pump on the market. That honestly is when I would go into reviews, read comparisons, educate yourself, crowdsource, see what has the best reputation. And what I like to do, what I've kind of come to the conclusion more recently, and I'm not saying that I'm the end all be all by no means, but if you find someone that you're like, oh, Kristen loved that pump, and or Kristen loved that pump and I hated that pump. If you find someone that you align with and you see them using something or having success with something, the chances of you aligning with another product that that person, and it doesn't have to be me, that other person could be using and having success with, you very well might have the same response because you're aligning on mechanics. You're aligning on the feel of that pump, the suction strength, the cycle pattern. You guys are aligning on the likeliness of aligning on more pumps subsequently after you already established that you guys like one pump, like you can agree to one pump. So that's something I would consider. Okay, let's I did see that Newton had mentioned, and this is my fault, I need to say it again. When you comment, you are entering to win the giveaway. And the giveaway again is a $100 Newton giveaway, a gift card, and then a few products of my own, which are the Pump Stuff bag, the Beyond the Boob instant download, and then a water bottle, of course. So be sure to comment so you can enter. And somewhere in here, and I don't think I can pin, but somewhere in the comments, I did put in under Kristen Crail the free download, the roadmap that helps you navigate all of this. So I know this is a lot to take in. I'm even finding myself getting tongue tied. There's so much information. And the free download is going to help you navigate Be My Breast Friend and everything I have to offer, from Instagram to the blog to the podcast and all different kinds of things that are just going to help. All right, so let's do a question. What do you got? What questions may we have? Do you recommend waiting to get a secondary portable pump until after baby arrives? I have a primary pump and a manual and a hand. Okay, cool. Well, it sounds like you're already pretty set up. Do you recommend? You have a primary and a manual. Okay, yes. I would recommend, because in the beginning you're establishing your supply. So you don't necessarily need that secondary right away. And it isn't uncommon for moms to like get all set up with everything. And I don't blame you. I would too, because I like to have everything established before I'm like ready to rock and roll, because I like all my tools like in front of me ready to be used. However, if you get a pump and you're like, oh man, I really am not feeling this and I need to try something else, then you could do the research and you can find which pump is a good comparison to the pump that you may or may not like. And I do want to get into that in our part 3, which I guess is next. There we go. Part 3 on products. So and I'll talk about that in a minute then. So there might be a product that you just found makes your skin crawl. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't like pursue other pumps, because now I want to find out what is the opposite of what's upsetting me. So that said, I would wait. And you've got like honestly, I would personally recommend waiting until you're closer to like a regulation. And again, this is a whole nother conversation you can find on the blog, until you're regulated and your hormones have taken a backseat to the supply and demand. And then you can really gauge what your milk production is and what to expect. Because my biggest fear, and I've gotten so many messages from moms, my biggest fear is that you start adding in a mobile solution before you're familiar with your milk supply, and then you don't realize how much milk you could potentially be leaving behind. And with that said, when you start leaving milk behind regularly, then you are very well going, it's a possibility, a pretty high possibility that you'll be leaving milk behind that will inhibit your milk supply, and you'll see a dip, and then we got to work at getting it back. So this all said, again, like total separate conversation, but I would just wait. That was a very long-winded answer. What else we got? Looking into the Eufy for when I go back to work at the hospital. I think it's a great solution. It's not. I have several favorites. The Eufy is a good option though. It's quiet, and I think that's a really big deal, especially if you're going to be in a room with a patient. I mean, if there's any hustle and bustle, you're probably not going to hear it. I went to Vegas recently, and I brought my Eufy. Well, I went in March, and I brought another pump that's notoriously louder, but I was in the casino. No one knew I was pumping, and there was no chance you'd hear it. So it's also a matter of application, like where are you using these pumps? And with that said, you're going to want to be familiar with, again, like I kind of crowdsource, like what's out of these pumps, which is the loudest? Like this is what I do for a living. I want to keep something quiet. Or if you're working in a concert venue, no one's going to care, right? It really won't matter. What else we got? What was the other pump you held up to compare to the Spectra? Well, I had the Spectra, and then I had the Baby Buddha and the Pumpables Genie Advance. Are those the two that you were asking about, Rachel? I'm guessing so. I think because they're really the only ones I have here. Let's see here. So these pumps, let's just talk about this really fast. This is a very exciting conversation, and I kind of mentioned it, but let's do it again. Okay, so just because a pump is small does not mean that it is not a primary pump. I don't like to talk about, because this is what I hear. Well, it's got a smaller motor, it's not as effective. I don't believe that whatsoever. I think that is not a conversation that I am going to align with. Just because it's small doesn't mean that it's ineffective. Ultimately, it's how you respond to something. So here, this whole time, I have been saying a mobile is not going to be your primary. And very once in a blue moon, I'll get a message. I will say, Kristen, that is my primary. It empties me better than the Spectra, better than the Baby Buddha, the Pumpables Genie Advance. Then I always respond to that, well, I'm happy that you found what works for you. And that's awesome. That means you're a unicorn and you're doing a great job. But ultimately, overall, crowdsourcing experience that I've personally had, experience that I've had with others, mobiles just don't, these guys here do not prioritize the breast the same as a well-seated flange. So that's why this is not going to be a first recommendation. But again, if you wait until you're regulated, you know what to expect out of your supply, and this just does a really great job, you're like, well, Kristen was wrong about me, and I could be. But I hate to set you off on the wrong foot by recommending something like this as a primary. So this said, what about a smaller motor pump? Can this be your primary? It certainly can. Anything can really be a primary as long as you're responding well. But crowdsource wise, personally speaking, my experience with the community and just everything that I've gathered over the last 7 years, I can say confidently that either of these pumps can certainly be your primary. They're small, yes, but when applied appropriately. So by appropriate, I mean a well-seated flange. The flange fits you. You're using tubing. It's going to your breast on the flange, collecting in a bottle. These can absolutely be your primary. Now, you might say, okay, well, I found that this pump worked really well for me, so I'm going to bring in a collection cup. Now, I'm going to use my primary as my collection with the cup because I want to go mobile. Well, this is what I say about that. Once you bring in a cup, you are bringing the pump that worked so well as a primary now down to a secondary. It's not because the pump is ineffective. It's because of the cup you're using isn't prioritizing your breast tissue the same way as a flange. I'm telling you, The list goes on. I've got more than this. So these are all solid solutions if they fit well for you, but they're not likely going to be your primary, even when paired with a primary pump. Primary, in my definition for me, is going to be a well-seated flange. All right. How do you know when you're regulated? How long should that take? Well, this again, I mean, we need to do some spin-offs. Um, your regulated time frame is approximately like 6 to 8 weeks or so. I've heard 12. It's really, I would just pay attention to your supply. So oftentimes you'll have someone that will say, I was making all of this milk and all of a sudden I dropped significantly in some cases, or some just a few ounces, but then that became the norm. And if you're around 6 to 8 weeks, that's likely you regulating. And that again is just your hormones switching gears. So in the beginning, milk is hormonally driven. It's still supply and demand. We have to demand that supply, but the hormones are really ramping up, right? That's what's really driving your supply. When we regulate, that is when the hormones jump in the passenger seat, you jump in the driver, and you are driving your supply by supply and demand. And that's why your choice of pump in the beginning is so important if that's the method of removal you're leaning into. All right, what else we got? What's my go-to primary? I okay. I used the Baby Buddha for 18 months, my first time pumping. And then I used the Pumpables Genie. No. Then I used the Baby Buddha again for another 16 months on my second journey. My third journey was 16 months with the Pumpables Genie Advanced. And currently I am at about 14 months with the Baby Buddha again. I honestly, I love them both. I personally prefer the Baby Buddha right now. But when I use this, I preferred this over this guy. But they've made modifications to the Baby Buddha 2.0 with trackpad. They brought in another mode, so it's a softer pull than the original was. It was a bit more aggressive. So for that reason, I can use this one from day one, which I did. I don't want to sway you guys. It's just what I like. I'm nervous about regulating. Don't be nervous. Just do everything you can. And that's what I try not to put too much stock into something I don't have control over. And the one thing that we do have control is how we're removing milk. And it sounds very mechanical, and I don't mean it to be that way, but in some cases it is up to us to remove breast milk if it's not your baby. And with that said, you really want to know what you're applying to your situation and what you're responding best to. Do you recommend bringing your pump to the hospital and pump while you're there, or wait until we are home? This is a really great question. And this is going to, number one, I would say, yeah, I would bring your breast pump. And the reason for that is if you don't use it, it just sits in a bag. If you need it, you've got it. Does the provider have a breast pump and all the solutions you need to pump? It's likely they do. It's very likely they do. They should. But if it's a different pump that you're going to be using at home, I don't like jumping between pumps, especially like you may not know, especially if this is your first time. But to simplify it, I would bring what you have because you'll roll out of the hospital with the pump you're going to be using. So you'd hate to like familiarize yourself with something that isn't going to be long term for you. And also it very well may have like a different cycle speed, suction pattern. Like you don't want to like play around too much with those things right away because you probably don't even want to deal with it, to be honest. And do you need to pump as soon as baby is here? That is a whole nother ballpark. And if baby's going to the breast and they're doing a fair job of removing, everything's going well, lactation comes in, nurses come in, everyone's, things are going in the right direction. No, there's quite likely no reason why you need to pump. If you are going into this thinking, I am going to be an exclusive pumper, my means and methods are going to be bottle and pump to feed my baby, then absolutely you're going to need to start pumping as soon as I hate to say as soon, but ideally you want to start moving milk quickly. But that truly is where the hand expression and the hand pump come into play. I definitely bring my electric breast pumps with me to my hospital to when I deliver, but is my first method of removal the electric pump? No, it's my hand. And that again is a whole nother ballpark. And I have podcasts on that. I've got blogs. That's in the roadmap, the free download about hand expression. So hand expression in the very beginning is going to be your best method of removing colostrum. And then as your milk matures, then electric is going to play a better and more effective role in that. And in between, excuse me, in between, the hand pump is a really good solution as well. So, yeah, I, I would just bring it because you've got nothing to lose. That's my opinion. All right. Such great information. Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh my God. Excuse me. It's been 40 minutes. Let's keep on rolling. Okay. Now for products, which I feel like we've really done a lot already on. But I just want to throw out a reminder because I still see some people jumping in and out. Um, if at the end of this you're like, what in the world did I just take in and where can I see it again? You can always head to bemybreastfriend.com. It is my blog. You can keyword search anything you're looking for, and whatever populates under like the manufacturer name. You look up Baby Buddha, Spectra, Pumpables, Motif, anything that populates with that search is going to populate there, and it could be everything from reviews to comparisons and what I like to call chit chats. So a chit chat is when I basically go on rants in my kitchen and I record them, I caption them, and I put them up for everyone to watch. And that could be everything from accessories, about lactation massagers to collection cups, just like thoughts and more information on breast pumps that I can't put into writing. And quite honestly, sometimes I'd rather watch a review than read review. So that's where that comes into play. Um, Now, I guess really before we like start talking maybe a little bit more about the pumps and the products themselves, this is the direction that I gave my friend a few days ago. I said, first, let's talk about like how you're applying it, which we've already talked about. What's your lifestyle? How do you plan on feeding baby? How soon are you going back to work? Are you traveling? What's going to be your like primeral, no, no, primary, excuse me, your primary source of removal. And then from there, the next thing I would say is, what is going to be your best bang for your buck? I love saving a dollar. And to do that, what I would recommend is look at that laundry list that you are going to get of all the pumps that you are eligible for. Look at what's free, look at what's an upgrade. And then from there, I would also consider those secondaries, but I would look at them from a point of view of like how much do they cost. So, for example, this is a great example. If you're like, okay, I think the Spectra is something that I need, and I want to say the MSRP, I think the retail is like, let's just call it 230. I think that's about where it's at. But this is call it a $20 upgrade in your insurance. Okay, this is just an example. So I would recommend getting a Spectra, and then down the road, as you're like, okay, now I want to become more mobile, and you can see it's a sizable pump. So this might not be ideal for out on the go. Yes, it holds a charge, but you're not hanging this thing from your hip, right? So you might from there look into, let me set this down. You might look into, which also could be on your potential provided insurance pumps, are possibly the Baby Buddha and the Pumpables Genie Advance. But retail wise, these are significantly less money than some of your provided pumps through insurance. So it's kind of a whole thing here. You want to look at which pumps. I would narrow it down to like two pumps. Like, which pumps am I most interested in, potentially, depending on how you're going to apply it. And then from there, I would look at price and see where you're getting your best bang for your buck. If for any reason, and here's like a product, right? A product chat. If for any reason you're like, okay, I have different like sensations, different, you want to use the pump separately, like, because all these pumps have single motors, right? This pump does not. It has dual. So if you're like, okay, I'm more sensitive on my left side than my right, I might need a dual motor. Or maybe like, you can't predict this, of course, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but let's just say like down the road you're like, oh gosh, I've got really bad damage or for whatever's going on one breast, and I need to drop the suction on one breast and increase on the other, whatever the case is. Something like this would be the case for you. This would be ideal. This pump is awesome, but this pump needs to be plugged into the wall. It is a dual motor. It's called the Synergy Gold. It's by Spectra, and it is an expensive pump. I got this with my insurance, I think on my third baby, and I really do like it. I got it really to review and use for the community, but it's a fabulous pump. But I'm certainly not using this regularly because it's so large and I want to be mobile. But it's a great option in the case you need a dual motor. But going from price point now back to that conversation, that's an expensive pump. So I would get that with insurance, and then I would consider buying another that's less expensive out of pocket. That's what I'd say about that. Let's see what else we got. Just like kind of ramble off a few names for like a primary pump, I would recommend the Spectras. I would recommend a Baby Buddha, a Pumpables Genie Advance. The Motif Luna is a great pump. For secondaries, I would consider like the Eufy, the Mom Cozy M5. I would consider a smaller primary paired with cups even for a secondary option. Let's see. I feel like I can keep on going. Let's see if we got any questions here. I feel like I can. Let's see. Do do do. Any questions? Um, Tips for elastic nipples and exclusive pumping. So that's all again a whole nother one. But I will say I personally have elastic tissue and I've always found success with silicone and that again like now we're talking hacks. So if you've got a connector, you could take the flange out and we can apply other flanges, which I'm currently having a hard time finding naturally. Why not? So like there's plastic flanges, there's silicone flanges, there's all different sizes. So you might like a lot of oftentimes someone will love silicone but they won't have their size. So you have to go back to plastic, but then dialing in your flange size with elasticity is huge. And something like that you really can't have on your radar until you are actively pumping. So I guess another thing I could say real quickly is measure because all of these pumps, generally speaking, are going to come with a 24 or a 28 or 27 millimeter flange. Are you that size? It's very likely you are not. You are probably significantly lower. And when you start using those flanges, you're putting yourself up to a couple of issues, like really big ones. You could have damage. You can inhibit your milk supply because you're not going to be actively removing milk because you're not responding to the flange because it's not seated properly. It's not your size. So I would recommend whether you go through Be My Breast Friend, I do offer nipple rulers, or sometimes off these pump companies will send rulers, cardboard rulers with the pump. I'm not going to pretend they don't. They absolutely may in the delivery once it's at your door. They'll also have inserts, which is another great place to start. I can go digging, but I'll waste time. So inserts will go in the flange, and that can help dial in your flange size too. So prior to delivery, I would say about 2 weeks leading up, I would measure to gauge what you're up against. Up against, and I don't mean it in that way, but what you're going to be dealing with. And then from there, once you start pumping and you find what's most comfortable, I personally would recommend a flange of the right size. I'm not big on inserts for long time use. So that's again another conversation that we can have at another time. Um, I I don't know. I feel like I can keep talking, but we're definitely going to run out of time. So, what do you think, Newton? Are we good? Are you guys happy? Is there a question, something that I've not rambled about yet? Do keep in mind you can always go to Be My Best Friend, keyword search. I really live on Instagram. That's like where my social home is, and then the home that I own is BeMyBestFriend.com. And I also have a YouTube channel. I try to stay active everywhere, but I'm only one person. I can only do so much. So please let me know if I missed anything. Definitely go to BeMyBestFriend.com. Please download the roadmap. It is a free download. It is a great way to start with Be My Best Friend and to navigate everything from the beginning and truly to the end. And in full transparency, I am working on a weaning page, so your destination will have a final stop eventually. Thank you so much for sharing, Newton. And yeah, I think we're good. This was the fastest hour of my life. I hope that everyone learned something special today. And don't forget to go to Be My Best Friend to check out more. All right, thanks everyone. I should ask Newton, are you going to share the winner now, or I don't want to hang up on everybody. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you so much. I don't want to hang up until I don't know how it's going to end. I should have known this, and I do apologize. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate it. I am currently breastfeeding. I am, again, 14 months strong. I'm a long-term pumper, and it's not like I feed my kids. It's like catnip. My 3-year-old, she asks for it often. We will select the winner on Friday. Okay, good to know. So I can hang up. But yeah, I'm a long-term pumper. It's what I know best. It's something that I have control of. It's something that I know that I can offer my children and still feel like I'm offering protection. So it's something that I do feel passionate about, and I love being able to help everybody here. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to let everyone go. Thank you for joining, and we'll select a winner on Friday. Bye bye.